Hello everyone, my name is Blake and this is Walk the Parks. Today we're going to do the most popular hike in Bryce Canyon National Park in 2x speed. This is the Queen's Garden Navajo Combination Loop. In this video I'm going to take you all the way through this loop and we're going to start at Sunset Point. Gosh, look how beautiful this is. Oh my god, Bryce Canyon is absolutely amazing. I just love it here so much. If you've never been here before, highly recommended. And I know that it is one of the more popular places to visit, but sometimes it does get overlooked. For example, if you go to Zion National Park right now, there's kind of just over 4 million visitors per year, and I believe Bryce is getting over 2. I'm not sure what the exact present statistics are. That's still a ton of people, but don't overlook this place if you're thinking like, oh, I've seen so many canyons. Bryce Canyon is just fantastic. So I parked and we're kind of in between Sunrise and Sunset Point. Right now we're headed over to Sunrise Point, and that is where the Queen's Garden Trail starts. You'll notice here that there's a lot of benches you can kind of hang out on and enjoy the view of the park. You can also choose to walk on the kind of gravel natural terrain, or there's a great paved area too. So high accessibility, which is great. One thing to be aware of in this park is that the elevation's quite high. So you're above 8,000 feet at the rim pretty much the entire park. I mean, you can go all the way down to the bottom. I think the lowest point in the park is something like 6,500 feet. But it's just fantastic here. But mentioning the altitude, you really do want to be careful. A lot of people consider this area of Utah and they think, oh, it's really just desert, but you're really kind of, I don't want to say in the mountains, you're really on the edge of a plateau. And this is a plateau that's eroding away. It's not really a canyon, but you want to keep in mind that you will be at high elevation, and also it could be very cold. Like if you go in the wintertime, there's almost a guarantee to be snow, which on the one hand is super beautiful, but on the other hand, you do kind of have to go down into the canyon, so you better be careful and bring some traction devices, maybe something like Yak Trax or Catula Micro Spikes or another brand. There's a lot of other like generic brands. Those are just the two most popular. So I kind of enjoyed staying right on the rim level, as you can see. Again, I am filming this, or excuse me, showing this in 2x speed. So this is, I wouldn't judge the length of this video for how long it's going to take you. I would also say that I am quite a fast hiker, and I've been really fortunate to have been to Bryce Canyon National Park probably like 10 times. So I don't think I really took a break or anything. So if you're going to be doing this loop, I would just make sure to give yourself a bit more time. A little bit of construction going on here. So if you do find this video useful, if you were kind of wondering what to expect from the Queen's Garden Navajo Combination Loop, then please consider liking this video or subscribing, or potentially give a comment down below. Would love to hear from everybody. So we're still on the rim trail. One thing I really like about Bryce Canyon is, you know, my car was only parked like a 1-minute walk from the rim. There is a lot of paved trails. There's kind of something for everybody. If you just want to go on a paved trail, they have that. If you want to kind of go on a more adventurous route, you can. But as I mentioned before, this is the most popular hike that everyone kind of does. It is recommended that you do this hike clockwise, which we're going to do. Right there was the start of the Queen's Garden Trail, but first I wanted to go up to Sunrise Point and check that out. You know, I think Sunrise, Sunset Point, it's hard to go wrong, really. I almost kind of go to the opposite sometimes just to kind of get away from people. If everybody's at Sunset Point at sunset, kind of go over to Sunrise. Sunrise and Sunset, one of those things where, you know, a lot of places it kind of depends and you never know where it's really going to be the best. So that's Sunrise Point there. Definitely worth checking out if you're not going to go below the rim. But if you are going to go below the rim, I would recommend the hike we're about to do right now. It's just about 3 miles, and according to my GPS, I gained about 700 feet in total. So this is the trailhead, and now we are on the Queen's Garden Loop. Absolutely beautiful. It is recommended that you go clockwise for a couple of reasons. Number one, the views are better. So check this out. Oh my God. I never get sick of coming here. Bryce Canyon is just spectacular. And feel free to kind of pause the video in these spots if you want to check them out more at the 2x speed. It's not really that much time to check them out. My God. Look how beautiful. So these are called hoodoos. And hoodoos are irregular rock towers, I guess is the way the National Park Service website describes them. And even though there's irregular rock towers all around the world, Bryce Canyon National Park has the highest concentration in the world. So the reason it's so cool here is because it is so unique. It's not like you can go somewhere else and see something as fantastic as this. So here we go, we're kind of switchbacking down. Another reason to go clockwise is that it's a more, besides the view, which that should be enough reason, but you kind of start going down the mellow downhill. If you start the other way, there are some pretty steep switchbacks, and you might think like, oh great, I don't want to climb up those steep switchbacks. I hear you, but I think people are more likely to get hurt or slip, especially if you go in the winter or something like that. If you're going downhill, according to the Bryce Canyon National Park website, more people do get injured on the really steep part of the kind of Navajo Loop side of this hike. So as you can see, this is kind of one of those places where there's just so many opportunities for photography. Obviously, we're going through this at 2x speed. I'm not stopping at all the viewpoints, but I would really recommend, if you've never been here before, that you just kind of check everything out. It's just absolutely amazing here. And I can't really emphasize enough, like everyone kind of thinks this area of southern Utah is mostly desert, but up here you're really quite high. I mean, you notice all the evergreen trees around us, and even that looks like desert landscape. It can really be quite cold at Bryce Canyon National Park, and you should definitely be aware of the elevation and the altitude. Gosh, look how beautiful that is. I just love it here. Even watching my video, I'm just kind of blown away. Like I've said, I've been lucky enough to I've probably been to Bryce Canyon like 10 times now, maybe more. Every time I am just blown away. So as you can see, there is quite a few people on this loop, but at the same time, it's not like you're fighting for space at every viewpoint or something like that. Or, you know, if you've ever been to Yellowstone when Old Faithful's going off, there's sometimes just thousands of people there. You really don't experience that too much at Bryce Canyon. Maybe a little bit on the rim, like that sunset point during the sunset. These people have a great idea with the umbrella. Super exposed in here. I mean, even though there's a few kind of evergreen trees, which are beautiful, you can tell there's really not much shade. So speaking of that, when is the best time to come to Bryce Canyon National Park? Well, 60% of visitors, according to the National Park Service, come between June and September. So you can kind of get some hot temperatures, and like I said, you are kind of in the sun for a lot of this. So, but you know, summer's when a lot of people have time off. So, and this park is kind of a better choice because at least you're at higher elevation. Some of the lower elevation, like if you go to the bottom of the Grand Canyon in the summer, it is just killer. It's so hot, like literally, it's dangerous. It can get up to like 120 with like ground temperatures being like 150. It feels like you're inside of a dryer. So Bryce Canyon with its higher elevation can be a smarter choice. You have less of that potential occurring. Just be sure though at elevation, if you're not used to it, that number one, you want to hydrate, drink your water. You know, maybe don't go out to the bar too hard the night before. And I would suggest some time to acclimate. If you're just going straight from like the airport to here and you're from sea level, I would just be very cautious. Like you really don't want to stress yourself too much until you kind of feel it out a bit just because altitude sickness can be kind of gnarly. So absolutely beautiful here. So now I'm going to go down. This is kind of the little Queen's Garden side trail. So first of all, spectacular. The Hoodoos here are so amazing. The beautiful colors too. I just love the kind of orangish, whitish, tannish, reddish. It's just spectacular. So just doing some switchbacks here. Having a good time. Gosh, I love hiking. There's also a couple of cool little tunnels on this hike. We're about to approach one right now, which is pretty neat. So we go through here, and pretty cool. I'm quite tall, so I have to duck to get under that. So here we are in Queen's Garden. So, and then one of these rocks is called Queen Victoria. You tell me which one it is. I think it's Queen Victoria, like sitting on her throne. I just love all of them. This is definitely a fun place where if you get to hang out for a while, you can kind of look at all the different formations and come up with different names for them or what you would call them. Gosh, absolutely beautiful. So let's see, some facts about Bryce Canyon National Park. Well, first off, it's not really a canyon. You're just on the edge of a plateau that is eroding away in a magnificent way. So you're kind of on the edge of a plateau when you're up at the by the visitor center or sunrise and sunset point up on the rim there, and then this is just the plateau just kind of beautifully eroding away. So not really a canyon, but pretty cool. Something else to consider while you're here is the stars are amazing. A lot of these areas in southern Utah are supposedly some of the most remote in the whole country, so towns are quite far away from one another, so there's not as much light pollution as like the eastern seaboard, for example. So make sure if you're here and you're camping or staying at a hotel or whatever you're doing that you go outside at night and check out the beautiful stars. As you can also see today, it's pretty much not a cloud in the sky, bluebird as I like to call it. So a beautiful bluebird day that I'm here, but that happens a lot in this area of the country. So you can kind of look up and you just have a perfectly clear sky and super bright and dark and just amazing. And you can see it's so varied here too. I love it. There's not just it's not just the same thing over and over. It's not like you're climbing to the top of a mountain just trying to get to the summit. It's just kind of around every corner there's new cool stuff. Like there's another cool tunnel to go through, and I was mistaken. I think that first side trail was a horse trail that you can only go on if you go on the horse tours, and right now we've kind of split off onto the Queen's Garden kind of little side trail. So now we'll keep an eye out for Queen Victoria on her throne, and you guys tell me. I think that might be her right there to the right. Queen Victoria. Oh, maybe this is it. All right, we had a sign. So I don't know whether is it the spitting image of Queen Victoria? Please, someone look it up and put it in the comments below. Send me a link to the photo of it looking like Queen Victoria compared to a picture or a painting of the real Queen Victoria. I would love that. So I highly recommend to spend a decent amount of time in Bryce Canyon National Park. I mean, this hike is the most popular. If you're only going to do one, this would be a great choice. Also, the Peekaboo Loop is outstanding. I think that's more like 7 or 8 miles, so kind of more of a commitment for sure, but much less people. Extremely beautiful. You can also do the Peekaboo Loop, and the Peekaboo Loop is absolutely amazing. Super highly recommended. This whole park is pretty amazing, really. the hiking is just fantastic. There is like an under the rim trail that you can go backpacking on as well. I think I've done most of that now, and that's pretty cool too. But I would say the Queen's Garden and the Navajo Loop and the Peekaboo Loop and the Fairyland Loop are the absolute most spectacular in the whole park. You can see that the trail is very well maintained. There's not tons of obstructions in the trail, so keep that in mind. And then there's a road you can drive. It goes all the way up. The high point is a place called Rainbow Point, which is also beautiful. And at Rainbow Point, you're at an elevation over 9,000 feet. Why is it called Bryce Canyon National Park, you may be wondering, as we go through this cool little mini slot canyon? Well, Ebenezer Bryce, a Mormon settler in the area, whose most famous quote is, "A hell of a place to lose a cow." It's named after him. He settled in this area, and I can imagine it must be a hell of a place to lose a cow. My God. I don't know how you'd even get it back, but I suppose if you're a cowboy or a rancher, you know much better than me on something like that. Bryce Canyon was made a national monument in 1923, and it became Bryce Canyon National Park in 1928. You can see there's some pretty cool like setups, like there under that overhang, nice long bench. Right now, you're kind of on a connector trail, so this one is bringing us down to the Navajo Loop. The Navajo Loop is absolutely outstanding. You're kind of right in the middle of the Hoodoos. However, when there's freezing temperatures due to rockfall damage, there's this one area called Wall Street, which is really spectacular, which unfortunately we're not going to be able to do because it is closed at this time of this hike, and there is a closure every winter for several months just due to rockfall. I think the freeze-thaw cycle overnight makes it so rocks could potentially fall much easier, so the Park Service does end up closing it. So we're going to be doing the Two Bridges side of the Navajo Loop, which is still spectacular. And hopefully I'll be able to come back again when the Wall Street is open and post that video here too. So it's nice hiking with you guys so far, ladies and gentlemen. I hope this is helpful if you were to go on a trip here and really curious. I mean, I know I am. I'm like, I wonder what this is like, but what is it really like? So I'm trying to show exactly what this hike is like. So we're pretty mellow here, as I said. We're kind of on the connecting area, and we'll just kind of go along. And I would not recommend doing this hike as quickly as I am for a number of reasons. I mean, there's so many opportunities to take photos, so chill and relax. There's no need to hurry, and I'm not really hurrying. I was just kind of like, I'm gonna go get a decent workout and go do this loop. I didn't have tons and tons of time on this trip. I did have to be back to work, so just kind of doing what I can out here. This is a very cool park for a number of reasons. Not only are the views dramatic, the great thing too about the dramatic views is that they don't require as much effort as a lot of places. Like, you can just kind of get right out of your car and you're there in a lot of instances, which is awesome. I mean, obviously you get rewarded more if you go on a hike like this or others, but it is awesome that you can just kind of go from the rim to and get a spectacular view. So even if you don't have that much time and you're like, oh, if you're on the fence about going, I would highly recommend going. Maybe go check out that area at the rim between Sunrise and Sunset Point. Absolutely gorgeous there and not too hard to get to. Keep in mind too that hikes here, like, because you're always starting at the rim, So every hike, well, maybe not every hike, but most hikes, you start by going down into the canyon. And what does that mean? It means that at the end of the hike, in order to get back, you have to hike up. So a lot of times the most strenuous part of your entire hike is going to be at the very end. And with all the sun kind of beating down on you and the elevation, that can be quite a challenge. It's certainly, it's kind of a miniaturized effect. It's kind of exaggerated somewhere like the Grand Canyon, where you're climbing up 5,000 feet. But even so, keep in mind that the elevation here, the problem still exists. Like, you're going to have your hardest moments all the way at the end of the hike. So don't overdo it, even though it is so tempting with all the beautiful hoodoos and amazing sights. So as you can see, we're, at the bottom of the canyon now. And coming up soon, the trail is going to split. And when it splits, you would go left to go to the Peekaboo Loop, which again is absolutely outstanding. Or you go straight ahead for Wall Street. That's the area that is closed. And Wall Street is one half of the Navajo Loop. And Two Bridges is what the other side of the Navajo Loop is called. And that is what we are going to do. There are restrooms at the rim, a little bit off, directly off the rim. But other than that, there's not really restrooms along this hike, so keep that in mind. And I suppose you could go run off somewhere down here. The woods are pretty open though, but just be cautious of that. And certainly bring water with you, even though you might think, oh, this hike is under 3 miles, not so bad. If you're still observing, there is a significant amount of sunshine. There's really not much shade. Plus the whole elevation factor that I keep talking about. You really, really, really want to stay hydrated. A lot of people here. I don't know if that's an organized group or what. So stay hydrated. Every hike really, there's a few important things you want to remember. Number one, leave no trace. So what does that mean? You want to leave, in theory, you want to leave place a nicer than when you found it. So if you do see some trash or something, pick it up. And the 3 basic tenets of leave no trace would be: leave only footprints, take only pictures, kill only time. Okay, so now you could have gone left there to go to the Peekaboo Loop. You could have gone straight to go to Wall Street, but it was closed. But we're taking a hard right, and this is going to lead us up to Sunset Point, and this is the Two Bridges side of the Navajo Loop. So absolutely beautiful. That intersection back there does provide a little bit of confusion. I feel when I'm down there, people are always talking, kind of looking, because pretty much you can either go Wall Street or the Two Bridges from here. So we're going up there, or like I said, to go over to Peekaboo, which is also fantastic. You can do you can do all sorts of cool like figure 8 loops and stuff in Bryce, in this area right here, which I absolutely love. Bryce Canyon really does have a lot of loop hikes, with the Fairyland Loop, Peekaboo Loop, Navajo Loop, and the Queen's Garden Navajo Combination Loop. One time I didn't do a loop hike, but I did walk from Yellowstone to the Grand Canyon. So yes, I walked about 3,000 miles in a route that I invented, and I connected every national park in Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, into Nevada, and then down to the Grand Canyon. And I did walk right through Bryce Canyon National Park. It was cold. I remember it being cold on that trip here. Very, very cold. And there was some snow. It is absolutely spectacular here. Now, don't get me wrong, the trails definitely get a lot more challenging, and if there's a ton of snow or a snowstorm, obviously it's going to be a bit challenging to get to Bryce Canyon National Park, but it is spectacular. The contrast of the white snow on all of these beautiful rocks is just fantastic. So if you can get here when it's snowy, highly recommended. And if you're in the summer, when most people come, something to be aware of is that Bryce Canyon gets a ton of lightning. So everywhere in this region of the United States kind of gets a monsoon season, which typically includes some thunderstorms and things. But Bryce Canyon in particular is really prone to lightning. So be cautious if you're here in a thunderstorm. I think only 3 or 4 people have died in Bryce Canyon National Park's history, but it is a thing. So you can tell this area is spectacular. It's like such a narrow little side canyon you're going through, and these trees are huge too, and these walls are huge. It's just absolutely spectacular. And one thing I found too is there's all sorts of different, like these hikes look so different in different weather. One time I went and it was foggy and it was amazing, and then the next day it kind of cleared out and that was even more amazing. You can be in the snow and that's incredible. But it's, I mean, obviously it's incredible all the time, but I don't know if you can tell, but I really love it here. And I find most people that I've come here with, or that if you talk about Bryce Canyon, are truly impressed by it. So don't skip it if you're on a big tour of the national parks. I know a lot of people love Zion, and I do too, but man, Bryce is pretty fantastic too. And you kind of get away a little bit, like Zion. It's not that it's crowded, it's just that it's such a small area that kind of everybody gets pushed on to the shuttle buses and things like that, so it can kind of seem more crowded. All right, so now we have our final kind of ascent here. So we're climbing up quite a steep trail, maybe not quite yet. And then, yeah, remember to turn around and check out the view too. Absolutely spectacular. So now we're kind of climbing up, and this is where you kind of get the huffing and puffing going. And I'll just go ahead and say you're welcome that I muted the original sound on this video and other videos like it. So I have this big plan that I want to make all sorts of videos like this for popular hikes, and maybe climbing mountains as well. And hopefully me saying this will make it come true, or hold me a little bit more accountable. But I think when people go somewhere, they want to know what to expect, right? Or maybe if you don't have the ability to go, this will give you like kind of a good idea of what it's like. I mean, if you want to see it in real time, you could slow it down. But so I hope it's helpful, or will be helpful to some people who are thinking about coming to Bryce Canyon National Park. Or maybe it's just a terrible idea I have on YouTube, but I really enjoy this. You know, I doubt I'll become a millionaire or something from it, but I think it'll be kind of fun to just film entire hikes and then commentate. My other idea too was to maybe release 2 versions of each video, kind of have one with commentary like you're watching now, and maybe have another one that's more mellow and kind of maybe either has some like calm, relaxing music, or just no sound at all. But I suppose you could just mute this one if you wanted that. You could just listen to or have on in the background as kind of a cool, like, just thing to have on in the background, you know, like walking through Bryce Canyon National Park. Or I did Angel's Landing hike, and then I did another hike up to Hanging Lake in Colorado in the winter, which is absolutely spectacular. So that's what I've done so far. I'm not too far into my project, but I'd like to do more just because I am so passionate about hiking. Love it so much. You can see all those switchbacks. It's hard to like to show steepness. That's one thing that's for certain in hiking. And then you come up here and there's just more spectacular views. Like you get this, you know, you're almost to the rim, but you're a little bit below, so it's just fantastic. What's your favorite part of Bryce Canyon National Park? I would love to hear what your favorite part is. One time I also rode my bike here. I went from Flagstaff, Arizona to the south rim of the Grand Canyon to the north rim of the Grand Canyon, and that was quite a ride. From the south rim to the north rim, oh my gosh, it was hot, and there's this hill that, you know, you drop all the way down to cross the Colorado River, then you go all the way up to the north rim, and you're on this road. Like, it's fine for quite a while, but then the final like 10 mile or 15 miles up to Jacob Lake, where you turn off to go to the north rim, is just this narrow road, and there was all these tourists on it in like these huge RVs and stuff like that. and oh my God, it was so tough. But I went to Bryce Canyon, and I remember we talked a little bit about lightning earlier. There was a crazy lightning and hailstorm just as soon as I got to the park. I remember I hid in a bathroom for a while. That trip, while it was really adventurous, I'd never really done bike touring. I just kind of bought a cheap bike and went for it. I would not recommend it just because I went during July and August through Utah, which is just a terrible time for. I mean, I only got like heat exhaustion badly once, but that was probably one too many times. So here we're almost at the top. Look how fantastic. So we keep coming up. Looks like they're doing a little bit of trail work here. So we just have a few more minutes. We'll get to the top, and then I'm going to go explore the sunset point. And like I said, you could just be here all day. If you come during sunrise, sunset, middle of the day, it's always fantastic. But you can just get kind of different light each time, and it's just fantastic. This is like a photographer's dream at this place, or it's just kind of just a dreamland in general, really. I like that the one trail is called Fairyland Loop. I always thought, Fairyland is a good kind of nickname or description of this area. It really is like you're in a fairy tale or something like that. So this would be where you go into Wall Street, and you can see there is that area is closed. You go through this like super narrow little canyon there, and it is fantastic. But it's still open over here. Another like little window that kind of gives you a view of another amphitheater, kind of a large open area of Hoodoos. So we'll just check this out quickly before we hit the rim. Definitely recommend going over here. Look at that. God. If you can't tell, I love Bryce Canyon. It's just so amazing. Alright, so then that's looking down to Wall Street. And when this whole loop is open, this Navajo Loop, that's another fantastic hike. I mean, if you're looking for something a little bit shorter, if it's open, the Navajo Loop just by itself. So there's the Wall Street side, and then there's the Two Bridges side. You just kind of combine those. I think it's like a 1.8 mile loop, so it's a little bit less than this. A little bit more strenuous because you are kind of going down those switchbacks right away, and they're quite steep, especially if you're going down them. So keep that in mind. But fantastic. And if both sides are open and you do this loop, I would really recommend maybe even consider doing the other side of the Navajo Loop as well. I mean, Wall Street's amazing, Two Bridges is amazing, and as always too, if you have more time, gosh, the Peekaboo Loop is just fantastic. There's so few people over there, and it is just awesome. They do also offer some tours on horses, which is really cool. So you could get involved with it. I've never done it. It looks really cool. I shouldn't say it is really cool because I've never done it, but I can't imagine it not being cool. So this is Sunset Point. Another absolutely spectacular viewpoint here at Bryce Canyon National Park. So how'd I do? Was this okay with my rambling? I know I say a lot, which I'm trying to work on, but I absolutely love this park. I hope you get the chance to check it out if you're ever here. Such a beautiful place. You can see there's some water fountains right here, which is nice. And then if you go a little bit farther from the rim, there's some restrooms. If you go this way more, like for where we started and where it dropped down, where Queen's Garden is, there's a general store over there. That was nice. What other questions does everybody have about Bryce Canyon National Park? Thank you so much for joining me today. Again, if you did find this video valuable, please consider giving this a like, maybe even subscribe. I'm going to try to have some more national park content. If you don't want to hear my voice, you could always just mute the video.